Good morning, all, and welcome back to PPS Theory Sessions. We are continuing online here. So, just yesterday we completed our second unit, which is basics or fundamentals of C, where we have seen number of basic things like what is token, what is variable, identifier, how do we write C program, structure of a C program, then operators, operator precedences, expressions, IO functions. That was all about understanding how we can start with a C programming language. But now, today we are going to start third unit, which is control structures in C. So how do we control the execution of our program? And how do we take some decisions, and based on those decisions, what are the blocks that we are going to execute? That's what we are going to learn in this third unit, right? Second unit presentation slides has been uploaded today, so you may refer those things now. Okay. So going through unit number 3, this is what the content we have to go through inside this unit. So we'll start with the simple statements. We've already seen simple statements, but let's cover those things very quickly in a single slide. And then we'll look at the decision-making statements. So how we can take some decisions. Then looping statements, if we want to repeat something continuously, then looping statements will help us. Nesting of control structures. Look, both these are control structures. You are going to control your code based on this thing. And you can nest those things also. It's possible. So inside if you can have another if, inside for you can have another for, even inside for you can have if, and inside if you can have for, and so on. So if, for, all these are statements. We'll look in a while. We can nest those things. So एक structure के अंदर आप दूसरा structure रख सकते हो. It's possible. And then there are few statements, break and continue statement. Now these two are unconditional branches, and the go-to statement, that is also unconditional branch statement. So we're going to cover these topics inside this unit. Let us start with the very basic one, simple statements that we have already seen. Simple statement. Look, all the statements in C program will end with semicolon. Semicolon actually indicates the termination of the statement. Okay. And whatever you write in that statement, if it is a normal calculation, arithmetic, or maybe something assignment or printing or something, these kind of assignments are called simple assignments. Simple statements. X equals to 2, it is just assigning value 2 to the variable x. X equals to 2 plus 3, it is just a calculation, mathematical calculation, and then assigning that final answer to the variable x. Even 2 plus 3 semicolon is a simple statement where we perform mathematical plus operation. It is just that we are not assigning final value to somewhere. So the final value will be discarded. That's it. Even put as high, it is a printing statement. So it's again nothing but a simple statement. So all these are the simple statements. Okay. And all the statements in C ends with semicolon. And we have written a number of simple statements till now. But from this unit, we are actually going to start our control statements. It is called control statement because using this control statements, you are actually going to determine the flow of control in your program. Okay. It always produces some kind of a result in terms of true and false. So it's kind of a condition. And based on that condition, whether the result is true or false, you are going to make some decision. Okay. So that decision is going to control the flow of your program. so that you can perform selected set of statements in your program. Now, mainly, there are two types of control structures or control statements: branching and looping. Branching is something that you are at a one place and you are going to select one of the multiple branches. Either you go with this one or you go with this one. In any case, you are going to neglect the other half, right? If you take the left path, then you are going to neglect the right side path. Okay. Yeah, Sohan is asking, comment compulsory na ho. Yes, Sohan, comments are not compulsory. It is just for the let's say information, so that the other person will understand that thing properly. Okay, back to control statements. So branching is something like this one. You take a decision which branch you are going to follow, and then the looping is something which is going to loop, okay, based on some condition. So at a place, you will check some condition, and if that condition is true, you are going to perform that iteration. You are going to loop that thing, okay. And if your condition is false, you are going to terminate this loop. So you will terminate the execution of this iterations, but it is something that you continue your loop part, and when condition is false, you go further. Until then, you are circling around, right? So that's what the looping is. So we have two major types of control statements. These are the types. Now let us dive in and have a look at what are those statements actually. So we'll start with the branching. So decision making and branching statements. Okay. So we do have four different kinds of branching statements: decision making and branching statements. It's nothing but a logical test. We are going to perform some test, and based on the result, system is going to decide which execution control it should follow. Okay, so it is known as the decision making and branching, because we take some decision and then we follow one branch. Now in this one, we need to go for a selection process. What is selection? So it's nothing but a set of statements which are there in your program are selected to be executed, right, among the several sets. We do have number of options. We have something like, we have option 1, we have option 2, we have option 3, we have option 4, but based on some condition, we are going to take one branch from this one. So we have number of options, but we are going to select one process. So that's the selection process. As I said, there are four types. First is if-else statement. If, then you have your condition. It's kind of Gujarati students will say jo to, jo આવું હોય તો આવું થાય, અથવા આવું થાય, જો તો અથવા something. Other students will say, means it is something like, if your condition is true, then you do something, else you do something. So that's what this if-else statement is for. Then we have switch statement. Look, if-else will always have two options, right? If and else. There are only two options. But if you do want to have multiple options, then you go for switch, where you can have n options, number of options, multiple options you can have. Again, it's gonna be based on the condition. So based on some condition, you'll select 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or so, and something. Just like grading system, let's say. If you do have a grade in between 8 to 10, you'll say it's distinction. Then 6.5 to 8, it's a first class. Then let's say 5.5 to 6.5, it's a second class, and so on. So we do have multiple options there. In that case, we should go for switch. Then there is a conditional operator statement. We have already seen question mark colon. It is again kind of if else. We have only two options there. Based on a condition, we are going to perform those two options. And one is go to statement. Unconditional branch. It does not require any kind of condition. Simply you execute go to and it will jump to that place. So let us have a look at all these options one by one now. Okay. So we'll start with the first one, if else. So it is used to execute a statement of or a block of statements only if the control statement generates the positive result. So definitely we'll have one condition, and if that condition is true, only in that case you are going to perform the if part. Otherwise you may go for else part. Now else is not compulsory. Okay. Now we'll look into those examples one by one, but it's a control statement. It is going to control your execution based on some condition expression, and that expression evaluates to either true or false. Fine. Now we do have 4 different types of if-else statements also. Now first 2 types of control statement, then inside that we go for conditional branching. Inside we have 4 types of conditional branching. In that first one is if else, and inside if else we have 4 types of if else's. Well, don't be afraid of these things. You are going to remember all these things once you start using it. Okay. So we have 4 different types of if else's. Either we can have only if statement, only if, I don't want else. So it's a rigid condition. If this is true, then I'll perform this. That's it. Then the second one is if else statement. So if condition is true, perform step 1, else perform step 2. So it's something like you have else option here. Then we may go for nested if else statements. So that's where nesting of control statement comes. So inside if you can have another if. Even inside else part you can also write if. Anywhere you can nest it. And the fourth one is else if ladder. Else if ladder. So you check your first condition and perform something else, you check second condition and perform something else, you check third condition and perform something, and so on. So you are actually creating a chain of multiple conditions, and that is called else if ladder. Okay, so let's have a look at again. Let's go deep and start with the first one, only if statement. Simple if statement here. Now this is what the syntax example, and to understand a flow chart on the right side. So we are looking at only if statement, simple if, a single statement or a single block of statement you want to execute depending on some condition, then you may go for only if. Now what is the syntax? You have if keyword. Look, this is a keyword. Then into the bracket you have your condition, which is going to result in either true or false. Fine. Now then you do these curly brackets, opening and closing curly bracket, that defines the block of code. It defines a block. Now if you have only one statement to execute, then this parentheses are not mandatory. But if you do have multiple statements in your block, then these parentheses are compulsory. फिर से बता दूं, अगर आपके ब्लॉक के अंदर एक ही स्टेटमेंट है तो ये पैरेंथेसिस करने की ज़रूरत नहीं. अगर आपके ब्लॉक में एक से ज़्यादा स्टेटमेंट हैं तो ये parentheses कंपलसरी करने होंगे. I'll show you other examples also. Fine. And once you complete your block, you can have your rest of the program. Next statements. So how is it going to be executed? So let us understand it with the flow chart. So first of all, it is going to check your condition here. And based on true or false, it will decide the branch. It will decide the option, whether I should go down or I should go right. Now, if your condition is true, then you will go inside this block and execute all the statements inside that block. So if your condition is true, you are going to execute that block. If your condition is false, then you directly jump to the next statements. You will simply skip that block. So अगर फ्लो चार्ट में देखें तो अगर मेरा कंडीशन फॉल्स है तो मैं स्किप करके डायरेक्ट नीचे चला जाऊंगा. I'll take the another path. Fine. And then my flow will continue from that place. Now any case अगर आपका कंडीशन ट्रू है या फॉल्स है, नेक्स्ट स्टेटमेंट जो है वो तो एग्जीक्यूट होगा ही होगा. Your condition is just going to take a decision whether I should go for block of statement or not. Okay, so that's how it performs the decision. That's how it controls your execution. And the example, if you want to have a look at here, then let us have one variable with some value, and I just want to check whether my value is greater than 5 or not. If it is greater than 5, then I'll print some message, otherwise I'll do nothing. So in that case, my value of variable a is 4, and I'm going to have if condition. If a is greater than 5, then I'll have this curly bracket block and print a message. Otherwise, I'll do nothing. I'll simply end the program. Right? So this is the if example. Now look, if you want to have single statement like if a is greater than 5 and printf, only one statement, okay, then there is no need to have these curly braces. You can omit these because there is only one statement. Okay, and C statement will end with semicolon. Don't forget this. Well, in this case, your if block, okay, your if block is going to consider this statement until it finds semicolon inside that block. So अगर एक ही स्टेटमेंट है तो कर्ली ब्रैकेट की जरूरत नहीं, बट मान लो कि आपको एक से ज्यादा स्टेटमेंट डालने हैं. लेट्स से इफ a इज ग्रेटर देन 5, तो आप क्या करोगे? आप सबसे पहले तो मान लो कि a का बैकअप a के अंदर एक ऐड करके आप z में स्टोर करते हो, एंड देन you print some message also. Look, this is just an example. Don't go in depth what it does, but just understand we have two statements here. Z is %d और z print कर दिया. Now if you want to have multiple statements inside if, then you have to compulsorily have these curly braces. So to indicate that there are multiple statements, we have this curly bracket. Okay, so that's what the example of simple if statement. Vyom is asking, so this flow chart is algorithm of the code here. Look, flow chart and algorithm both are same. The way of representing those things are different. If you simply go for step by step written process, then it is algorithm. But if you display that process in a graphical manner, then it is flowchart. No difference. Okay. Simple statement and conditional statement are same. No, Krishna, that's not same. Simple statement does not have any condition, but conditional statement does have some condition, and based on the condition, it it performs some steps. So conditional statement is question mark colon. That is the operator actually. We have already seen that operator in previous unit. Also, Krishna, you were asking about break statement with switch. Let me go up to the switch statement explanation, then it will be much clear. We haven't considered switch case yet. Okay. Hussein is asking, can we put some attribute to fix that false condition statement? Well, false condition statement we can handle with else part, and that's what the next thing we want to have a look at, if else. So Hussein, this is what you are asking about, right? If condition is false and you want to perform something, then you can have else part. So as you can see, if we have if, then some condition. If that condition is true, I'm going to perform this block. If that condition is false, then I'll go for the else block here. Okay. So you can understand this process with flowchart. Have a look at your condition. If it is true, you go for block 1. If it is false, you go for block 2. You pick any branch, doesn't matter. After you complete that branch, you are coming back to next statements always. Whether you come from block 1 or you come from block 2, next statement which is there after if else is going to be executed always. Right? So this is how we can take a decision whether I should go for branch 1 or branch 2. Now branch 2 is always going to be the else part. Okay. Yeah. So Hussein is asking in between process. No, I don't understand, Hussein. What do you say? In between process means what? Sohan is asking user પાસેથી value લઈને if else નું example આપો ને. Yes, we can do that, Sohan. Let's say we want to take one value from user. Let's give a proper message, printf. Please enter a number less than 10. And this is what the message I give to my user. And then I take a value, scanf %d ampersand number, let's say. So what we have done here is we have given our user a proper message. Please enter a number. And I've also given a hint, less than 10. And then I take that number using scanf. Now I'm going to check that number. So I can have if num is less than 10, then I'm going to do something. Let's say I'm going to print a message. You have entered proper number. Okay. Else I'm going to perform something different. Here we can say invalid number. Right? So this is that example. We take one value from user, then we test that number, that value, and based on our test, we are going to perform something. Now at this place, I just wanted to have a single printf statement. That's why I haven't gone for these curly brackets. Okay. I haven't written those things. It's okay. But if I want to have multiple statements inside the block, then I need to compulsorily write all these parentheses. So I hope that I'm clear with this example. everyone is clear with this example also. Yeah. Okay. So that's if else statement. So if we can have single if, or we can have if else, then now this is the example. Oh, I was having that example. Well, let it be. Enter a number, take that number, check that number, some condition, and print your message. Now, what this number is doing, it is just checking even and odd here. Whatever number user has given, we are going to decide whether that number is even or odd number. Now, how will you decide? So it's very simple. Whatever number you have, you divide that number with 2. And if there is remainder 0, then it is even. And if remainder is 1, then you say it's odd. Now in a program, which operator gives us reminder? So we have a modulo operator, right? X modulo 2. Modulo percentage sign is a modulo operator which gives us reminder. So if my modulo operator gives me 0, so this becomes my condition. Now look, double equals to sign. It's a conditional operator, right? If you by mistake, if you write single equals to here, then it becomes assignment operator. So make sure that you are not making this kind of mistake. Single equals to and double equals to have different meaning. These two are different operators. Single equals to is going to assign value from right side to left side, whereas double equals to is actually going to perform check equality between left and right. That's the difference. Okay. Yeah. So back to this example, what it does, it only checks whether the given number is even or odd, and based on that condition it prints the message given number is even or given number is odd. So this is the example for if else, right? Next one is the nesting part. Look, we are not covering conditional operator here, question mark, colon, because we have covered that thing already in the previous unit. So let us directly go to the nesting of if else. Nest, inside one control we can have another control. That is what the nesting part is. So nested if else statement, what we can do is we can have entire if else statement inside within the body of another if else. So you can have that entire if else statement inside this if. Even you can have it inside the else also, but that's another example, simple. Just to make you aware that you can nest these things, let's have single example. if के अंदर if डाल दिया, else के अंदर भी if लिख सकते हो, there is no problem. So that's what the if else nesting of if else is. Now let us understand how that thing will be executed. So you are going to have the first condition, outer condition first, and based on that condition either you have true or you have false branch. So coming back to example, we have condition 1, and based on condition 1, if it is true, I'll go inside. If it is false, I go to else part, right? So if condition 1 is true, then I'm going to perform second condition, condition true 2 inside that. So back to flowchart. If my condition 1 is true, then I'll perform the second condition. If my condition 1 is false, then I directly jump to the else part of first if. and then I come to the next statement. Now let's have a look at second condition. If condition 2 is true, then go to this branch or go to this branch. So you perform either block statement 1 or block statement 2. Now here you need to be careful of curly brackets. Let us go back to this example, and you have to be more clear about all these curly brackets, where it starts and where it ends. Okay, so for that, let me go for different colors. Now this is the outer if block, and that if block ends here. So we have its corresponding else, and that else block completes at this place. But inside that, we have another if. Now this is where our another if starts, and here it ends. So that we have its corresponding else part, and that else part is completed at this place. Still, if I want to go for all 4 different colors, then this is the first one, and this is the else one. Now this is the inner if, and this one is inner else. So you have to be careful with these parentheses. Now it is simple, it is similar to the mathematical parenthesis that you create. The outer parenthesis, you have 2 plus maybe inner parenthesis 4 divide 2 minus 3. So what are the pairs here? This one is the outer pair, this one is the inner pair. Similarly here we have outer and inner controls, right? So whenever you nest something, you must be more attentive to all these parentheses. Then and then only you can decide what exactly your code is going to perform. Okay, do not have any extra parentheses, or do not have any less parentheses than the required one. Otherwise it's going to create an error inside your program. Yeah, so this is the nesting part. This one is the flowchart. Let us have a look at the example. Now example में मैंने आपको क्या दिखाया, if else को else के अंदर डाल दिया, if के अंदर रखने के बजाय मैंने else के अंदर उसको डाल दिया. So you have this idea, you can nest anywhere. And what this example does is, let's say you have one variable age, and you have some value inside that. You are going to check that value. If that age is less than 14, तो आप जो है वो कुछ अलग percentage में incentive दोगे, fair. So that's this calculation. 0.5 means 5% incentive or something. Otherwise, you will check whether age is less than 50. Look, it is not less than 14. तभी आप else में आए हो. तो जैसे ही आप else में आते हो, it is already fixed कि भाई वो age जो है greater than 14 है. वो इतना तो पक्का कर लिया. Greater than 14 है, लेकिन मैं और भी चेक करना चाहता हूँ whether that age is less than 50. Then I'll go for 1%. अगर वो 50 से भी लेस नहीं है, तो यहाँ पे आप confirm हो जाओगे it is greater than 50, and in that case you'll say okay, we'll go for 2%. Now this is example related to the fare to be charged after discount. So we are subtracting that part, which means this is a discount. Okay, so what happens here is if a person is child, then you'll have 5% discount. If it is seniors, if that person is senior citizen, maybe after 50, then you go for 2% discount. Otherwise, you'll have 1% discount. Okay, so this is how we can part, and we can decide what we want to perform. Okay, let's repeat this example. Now this example is about to calculate airfare after discounts. Okay, I want to print that fare. Now the discount that we want to provide depends on the age of a person. If the person is less than 14 years, then I'm going to give him 5% discount. If that person is greater than 14 years, then again I'll have next condition, whether that person is senior citizen or normal person, young person. So in that case, else part के अंदर फिर से if ले लो, and here you will check if the age is less than or equals to 50, then that person is a younger person or whatever. I'll give him 1% discount only. Otherwise, that person is kind of a senior citizen, then we'll go for the 2% discount. So that's how we calculate fare, and then we print that fare here. Is it clear, Sohan? So that's the nesting part we have seen. Sorry. Okay. Now let's go for the next one. Else if ladder. Now look, you can go for nesting always. You can have as many level of nest whatever you require. If के अंदर if, उसके अंदर तीसरा if, उसके अंदर चौथा if, you can have it. But that's going to create a complex structure. So just to make it simple one, we have else if ladder here. It is almost similar to nesting, but when you write this else if ladder, it is going to be much simple than the nesting part. इसमें भी यही होगा, you go for condition 1, if true, perform something else, you go for second condition. You perform something else, you go for third condition, and so on. So it is nothing but a multi-way decision based on several conditions, right? So we perform some condition. Our first condition, if it is true, we go for statement 1. Else, we go for second condition. And that second condition is true, we go for second statement. Else, else if, you can have as many number of else if part here as you require. Last में क्या करोगे? You'll have condition n and statement n. अगर कोई भी condition सच्ची नहीं है, if all these conditions are false, then at the end you can have else part, statement x. Once you complete this entire ladder, you'll have next statements. Okay, so this is how it is going to perform. You always start with condition 1. If true, perform statement 1 and directly go to the end. If your first condition is false, then you go for second condition. If that is true, perform step 2, go to end. If the second condition is also not true, then you'll go for condition 3 and so on. You perform your condition n. If it is true, statement n, and you come to last statement. If none of these conditions are true, you may have the statement x and come back to next statement. Now remember, else part is always optional. If you don't want to have it, remove it. Okay, so here even this else part is optional. even in this one, this, well, yeah, else part is optional. We just want to have an example of nesting. Okay. This also is optional. Now, when you are looking at if else itself, तो फिर हमें दोनों चाहिए, because this is what the statement we are looking at. But from the first one, you'll come to know कि भाई हाँ हमने सिर्फ if लिखा था, यहाँ पे else लिखा ही नहीं था. That means else was optional. So we have seen if statement, we have seen if else statement, we have seen nested if else, and we have seen else if ladder. Else if ladder का एक example देख लेते हैं. So you will be much clear with all these things. So this one is the example of else if ladder. Now, as I told you, if you wanna go for the grade, okay, what is the grade? A, B, C, what grade you have based on some percentage. So you are going to have multiple condition, multiple decisions here. So you are going to ask result. Now, either you may ask or you may calculate result, doesn't matter. But once you have your result, then you check, or you have some condition on the result. If your result is less than equals to 50, you have grade D. If it is not less than equals to 50, you go to the else part, and with that else, you have another condition. So it is something like nesting. Look, you have if result is less than equals to 50, then you print grade is D. Else, now inside the else part, you have another if. Result is less than equals to 60. Then you print, okay, then you print your result is whatever C. Else, now inside this else, you are having another if, and so on. So you'll complete this else, and then you complete this else. So that is the nesting here. Okay, this one is the nesting level 1, nesting level 2, and so on. We have multiple levels of nesting here. And now if you see at this example, this is much more complex to understand, right? So to make it simple one, we have combined else if. Okay, and we have this structure. Now this is much more simple one, easy to read and easy to understand. So if condition 1, first condition grade D, else condition 2 grade C, else condition 3 grade B, and if none of these conditions are true, then the final one grade A. Right? So yes, Hers, it's kind of a layer inside a layer. That's, so you have one if layer, and inside that you have another if, inside that you have another if. So if you are talking inside, then it is nested, but if you are going for chain, then it is a ladder. So going for ladder is easy to write and easy to understand, but it's not the case that always you may have a ladder. Sometimes you need to go for nesting. Ladder कब चलेगा? Else के अंदर डायरेक्ट if लिखना है तब भी ladder चलेगा, लेकिन else के अंदर आपको कुछ स्टेटमेंट करने के बाद if लिखना है, then ladder is not going to work. Remember this thing. So else के अंदर if कंडीशन है, उसके अलावा कुछ भी नहीं है, then else if ladder will work. बट मान लो कि else के अंदर आपने 4-5 स्टेटमेंट्स परफॉर्म कर लिए, देन यू हैव इफ, तो लेडर नहीं लिख सकते, वहां पे आपको कंपलसरी नेस्टिंग करना होगा. क्लियर? So this is the if part. Now let us have a look at switch case also, so that we'll go for examples in the next lecture. Okay, let's cover all these basic conditions and theory part today. So the next one is switch statement. You can always have else if later, लेकिन else if later को भी और simple बनाने के लिए हमारे पास आ गया switch statement. It is something like performing multiple conditions, and whichever condition becomes true, you perform corresponding block. That's what we want to achieve. जैसे कि previous example में हमारे पास काफी सारी conditions थी. Result less than 50, result less than 60, result less than 75, and so on. So based on these conditions, if you want to perform something, you can go for else if later, or you may also go for switch case. But एक प्रॉब्लम है, स्विच केस में हम जब केस लिखते हैं then that value need to be a singular value. Okay, it can be simple number or it can be simple character. इसके अलावा आप कुछ नहीं ले सकते हो. You cannot have entire string as a case in C program. Okay, so that's kind of a limitation here, but let's have a look at switch now. So it is again a multipath decision making statement. How you are going to write it? So you'll have switch keyword, then you have your expression. Now that expression can be conditional expression or it can be a simple variable. Okay, now what happens here is this variable or simple expression is going to be matched with multiple cases here. Now if that expression is having value 1, you perform this part. If that expression is having value 2, you perform this part, and so on. You can have case 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on, multiple cases. And if none of the cases are fulfilled, then at the end you can have a default case also, right? So the last part is default case. Again, default case is optional. If you don't want to have it, simply remove it. अगर नहीं चाहिए तो निकाल दो, चलेगा. And you have to have proper parenthesis break block of code here, right? Now remember, in each and every case you have a break statement which is actually going to break that case. Otherwise execution will continue from top to bottom. अगर आपने बीच में ब्रेक नहीं लिखा है तो केस 1 के बाद केस 2 भी एग्जीक्यूट हो जाएगा. That's how any C program execution will go on, line by line, one after another. Okay, so to break it, to break that flow, we have to write break statement. एक केस खत्म होने के बाद मैं break लिखूंगा. Now when I have that break, it is going to break this entire switch statement. It will break this entire switch statement and it will go to the next statements. Okay, फिर से switch is a keyword, then you have some expression or a variable. So that variable is going to be checked with case 1, case 2, case 3. Now that 1, 2, 3 is nothing but case and then the value 1. अगर expression की value 1 है तो पहला block execute करो, अगर expression की value 2 है तो दूसरा block execute करो, and so on. Whichever case is fulfilled, you are going to execute that block. After each and every case, don't forget to write break statement, which is going to break your switch case entirely. Last में अगर default लिखना है तो लिख सकते हो. You can omit that default case also. Fine. So that is what the switch statement is. Let's have one example. Now this example, we can use switch case most relatively for having some kind of choices from the user. So we can ask user to enter a choice, and we take that choice from user, and then based on that choice we perform number of cases. So if user has given one integer number, because %d we have written, then we say case 1, choice is equals to 1, then you perform this thing. If value of choice is 2, then you perform this thing. If value of choice is 3, you perform this thing. If not 1, 2 and 3, then you go for the default part. Okay, so that's what the default case is. Now default case should or must be returned at the end. Default को आप कहीं बीच में नहीं लिख सकते हो, याद रखना, वरना default पहले fulfill हो जाएगा और बाकी के केस कभी fulfill नहीं होंगे. So default must be returned at the end. Before default case, you should write all the cases that you want to check. So अगर यूजर ने 1 दिया तो वो स्क्वायर फाइंड करेगा. अगर यूजर ने 2 दिया तो वो स्क्वायर रूट फाइंड करेगा. अगर यूजर ने 3 दिया है देन वो क्यूब फाइंड करेगा. और अगर यूजर ने 1 2 3 के अलावा और कुछ भी दिया है तो वो इनवैलिड चॉइस प्रिंट करेगा. So that's how we may go for switch statement. Later on, we'll create some programs based on user choices, and at that place, you will use switch statement to check what is the user's choice, and based on the user's choice, you perform some block of code, perform some operation. Fine. So, well, we'll stop here for today. In next lecture, we will see go to statement, and then we'll jump into the practicals. We'll see some programs, how we can write all these things and we can use it somewhere. Okay, so that's all from my side. Let me have a look at some points in the chat if you have asked. Yeah, no queries. Okay, Manjit is asking, PPT not available in e. Well, I have uploaded PPT in the e-content already. I have selected all the classes, so just verify it one more time. PPS is the subject, second semester, and you will have those content. If not, then you first verify in which class you have been mapped. Okay, Manjit. Mihir is saying civil department. Oh, attendance will be taken automatically, Mihir. Make sure that your email ID is proper. Institute email ID you have used to join this meeting. I can do nothing else. Fine. So thank you everyone, and see you in the next lecture then.